What's up guys, Future Justin here. Just wanted to let you know that this is not your typical fragrance video. Some of you guys clicked on this video looking to get into some kind of top 10 list, get the recommendations, get the fragrances on screen so you can start buying them and smelling them and all that good stuff that you like to do when you click on videos like this. But I'm just warning you, this is not necessarily one of those videos. I have quite a bit to say, more than normal, because this is a topic that I have a lot of thoughts about, as you'll see. So if you really cannot wait, if you just are here for the fragrances, then you can go to this timestamp on screen. But if you're a real one and you really want to hear what I have to say and you want to join the discussion, then keep watching. Thank you in advance. Why am I making this video? I'm making this video because I made this video. This is a recent video I did, and it was focused on the problem of overspending with fragrances and pairing that with the solution of maybe saving money in general, but also saving for more high quality, more special fragrances, i.e. more expensive, so to speak. But it was focused on clones, and I used that as the centerpiece because it seems to be the hot button today. It seems to be the most trending thing in the fragrance community. It seems to be the object of highest desire for many of you guys. Not all of you, but many of you. And I got some really interesting feedback on that video, but instead of moving past it like nothing happened, I decided I'm gonna first of all respond to some of the comments I got, some of the primary sentiments I saw across the video, and I have some thoughts to share, and then I have some fragrances to share as per the title of this video. I know it's a hyperbolic title. It doesn't need to be taken literally, but we'll get into all that here in a second. Let's look at some of these comments. Here's the thing. Most people don't know or care what you're wearing. It either smells good or not. Designer, niche, or clone. I buy all three types. Obviously, the niche quality is higher on average than designers, the clones, maybe, and the clones. But wait. Clones are getting better and better. At the end of the day, do what makes you happy and while still being responsible and practical. Perfect case scenario. The things I take away from this comment are mostly valid. Most people don't know or care what you're wearing, but that obviously speaks to the idea that you are wearing your fragrances primarily to see what other people think of them. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think that is something to evaluate. Are you primarily wearing them because you love them and you're wearing them for you even if no one said anything about them ever? Or are you wearing them specifically for conspicuous consumption? You want other people to know and you want them to say something. Again, there's no wrong answers here, but just be honest with yourself and figure out where you land. Clones till I die. Some of y'all are crazy talking about the real thing. It's called marketing. I enjoy independent houses, but the big houses don't care about you. It's just marketing. I guess it's just marketing. Yeah, this is simply a matter of taste here. There is a whole lot of marketing, especially with the big houses, but big houses aren't all there is as far as niche perfumery goes. This guy did say he does enjoy the independent houses, and I would choose those over the clone houses any day. And I do believe that there is validity to the real thing. In some cases, perhaps it's being watered down, but not in all cases. I can appreciate clone fragrances that replicate discontinued fragrances or older batches of existing fragrances. This comment. I always forget to say this myself. I always forget to share this because this is what I can get behind. This is the only scenario that I can get behind a clone fragrance when it's trying to give you a fragrance you otherwise cannot get. Not because you can't afford it, but because it's not available. If that's all clones did, I'm with that. And there are some brands or houses or collections that aim to do that. And I have actually a lot of respect for that. But that is the only exception for me. I mean, you live in the US. That explains it all. Try buying fragrances in a country where your currency is worth a fifth of the US dollar to see if clones aren't really money-saving options. In my country, you have to work 5 months if you earn minimum wage to buy a Xerjoff fragrance, for instance. I'm not going to combat this. I don't live anywhere else but the United States. That is the situation that I'm dealing with. You have your situation that you're dealing with. In no way is your situation invalid because that's reality for you. I totally understand that, and I totally appreciate you sharing this in this comment because it's true. There's a lot of other people who are affected in this way. So obviously buy what you can afford relative to where you are and what's available. Simple as that. When brands start watering down fragrances and or hiking up the prices astronomically, like Estee Lauder has done with Tom Ford after acquiring it, just one singular example, then I shall support any clone that achieves at least 90% of the OG. It's no longer about the artist and the art anymore. Same goes for brands that discontinue a beloved fragrance for no reason. Okay, there's a little bit of volatility in this comment, maybe some emotion as well. I did actually reply to this comment and I said something along the lines of, you know what, you're right. There are brands that are watering down, so to speak. Basically what that means is that the price is going up negatively relative to the quality of the fragrance that you're getting, so it feels like that gap is just widening and you're not getting what you're really paying for. And my solution to that is don't give them your money. The fragrance brands that are being affected by these changes are a small percentage of the industry, and there's a lot of stuff that's not discussed. So we have to step outside of the conglomerates from time to time. If you're not sure what I mean by conglomerates, this is what I mean by conglomerates, also called parent companies. There are hundreds of them in the fragrance industry, but the ones you see on screen, these 7, are what I have observed as the most prominent ones. They contain the designer brands primarily that we see talked about, that we see that are the most popular, the ones that have the most limelight, the most attention, the ones that are recommended the most, that probably sell the most, whatever it is, at least in the online community. These 7 brands contain just about all the designer brands you can most likely think of. And I've calculated that these 7 conglomerates contain a total of about 180 fragrance brands. That's a lot of brands. But out of the well over 3,000 brands that are at least cataloged on Fragrantica, and that might be somewhat of a conservative number, this is only about 5% of fragrances that are out there. So that's what I mean by a small percentage of the industry that is affected by changes in regulations and quality and all these things. So if we want to keep our sights set on the 5% and get upset about those things, then yeah, we can keep doing that. Or we can set our sights on the other 95% of the industry out here and probably find some stuff that we like and stuff that's not affected in all the ways that are so frustrating. Anyway, just thought I'd point that out. To really seek out the art, to seek out the quality, not to say it does not exist within the conglomerates, because I do believe it still does, just might be a little bit more fewer and farther between. Man, I get what you're saying, but the average Joe is not going to pay a lot for a fragrance unless they're a collector. People like myself have a price limit on a fragrance. I'm actually going to stop here. And the only thing I'm going to speak to in this regard is a mindset issue. Why do you see yourself as average? Why are we comparing ourselves to average? Is that how we want to go through life? The one life we get to live, and we want to go through comparing ourselves to average? We can accomplish so much more than that. If you want to make more money, and you live in the United States, then you have every available resource to actually do that. It just takes maybe doing a little bit more than what you're doing, or changing the way you think about money and acquiring it and finding other more effective ways of getting it. There's a lot of ways to do that. So I don't mean to be pointed in any way towards your point of view, because I understand here at the end of the comment, you said nice video, so I appreciate that. And you weren't offended, so I'm glad about that too. If you were, so be it, but I'm glad you're not. But I just want you to, we got to raise our self-images, guys. And honestly, fragrance is not going to do it all by itself. So vying for the cheapest fragrances, ironically enough, might not be helping us, because it's only feeding into the lowness of where we see ourselves on the totem pole. I don't know, just food for thought. I'd love to know what you guys think of that. We need to get into the meat of this video. So what I've done is I took the average of dozens of clone fragrances on the market today, at least at the time of filming this video, and I averaged them out, and I saw that the average price for your standard clone fragrance these days is right around 29 bucks. It's a very attractive price, right? Especially for a full bottle. Now, I actually don't know what kind of resale value you truly have with your clone fragrances, especially when they're that inexpensive. So I don't know if individually reselling them is actually a viable option. You might be stuck with them unless you plan to sell them in bulk or in bundles, to sell them for very little, or to just gift them to people you like or your enemies, whatever it may be. Either way, I'm going to approach my recommendations that I'm going to offer you, these niche fragrances that could replace your whole collection of clones, so to speak, from the point of view of you not having purchased any clones yet, which is maybe unlikely for a lot of you, or if you have purchased clones, foregoing your next several prospective clone purchases, and instead maybe getting some decants of these fragrances that I'll share with you, and maybe even full bottles of the ones that you love. Now, there's a pervasive argument against this, and you might already be thinking it. I can get X number of full clone bottles for the price of a full niche bottle. Now, this is clearly a quantity versus quality argument. And honestly, there's no right or wrong here. It's a matter of taste. It's a matter of what you choose to value. But let me ask you to Question yourself, how will I feel about these 5 bottles a month from now, 6 months from now, next year? Will I truly enjoy all of them with the same level of excitement I allowed to influence my decision to buy them? Again, these are questions for you to answer for you, not for me. I hope this is already clear, but I believe the biggest benefit to saving your money for more special, more high quality, more expensive fragrances is that it forces you to slow the heck down. I've talked about this time and time again, but cheap purchases are low-hanging fruit, and they allow us to sprint through this hobby at an unnecessarily breakneck pace. And the fact that hundreds of new clones are coming out every year, unfortunately, makes it all too easy to just keep buying them in bulk and all too often. It is so easy to unknowingly spend $300 in a month, maybe every month, on multiple clones without blinking an eye. But spending that much or even half of that on 1 or 2 full bottles of quality fragrances will naturally damper your spending. Why? Because you have less to play with, so to speak, for what you just paid for. There's less to keep your attention, less stimulus to keep you occupied. You got one fragrance and you got to spend time with it, and you got to make it interesting, and hopefully it is, because that's why you bought it. Now, I do believe slowing down will help you in several ways. It'll help you avoid burnout in this hobby because you don't have a collection of fragrances that overwhelm you every time you look at them, and that will allow you to enjoy your collection more deeply. And most importantly, for those of you who are married, it'll keep you out of trouble with your spouse for your superfluous spending. I see a lot of your comments saying, oh, my wife got mad at me, I gotta hide these boxes. Come on, guys. Priorities. To be spending conscious with my recommendations, they will all be $150 max, roughly, for a full bottle around the internet, which will equate to about 5 clone fragrances if we're talking about it from that $29 average price point. I know some of you guys are still freaking out that I'm replacing a 5 fragrance purchase with a 1 fragrance purchase, but it's okay. If you still can't handle it, I understand. Thanks for listening thus far. If you have to go, then I get it. So what do you say we dive into these fragrances? In no particular order, first one up here is from the house of Nobile 1942, an Italian house. This fragrance came out like 20 years ago, but smells utterly timeless to me if you're asking. This is called Pontevecchio. Lovely masculine fragrance. Oh, this is so beautifully woody and aromatic, kind of citrusy and mouth-watering. There's lots of geranium. There is lots of vetiver in here, maybe some iris. So there's this kind of fruity, citrusy brightness. There's a dry woodiness behind all of that that is subtle and very handsome. And it is kind of posh smelling. There is this fullness, this rich freshness from the iris and maybe some other florals. Again, that geranium bringing a little bit more aromatic, the mintiness that it can carry. It is beautiful. It is utterly unique. Nothing smells quite like this, but it's so wearable, so versatile, very high quality stuff. And again, can be had for less than $150 from discounters. I do believe FragranceNet carries it. They might even have decants available. I'm not sure. I will link to what I can find down below. Let me know if you've tried this one. That's Pontevecchio from Nobile 1942. Another Italian house, one that you know, maybe you love. Acqua di Parma. This is Zafferano, and this is an evening fragrance. I got a few evening centered fragrances scattered through here. I'm trying to make an effort to do more of this during the season because it's not a subsection of fragrances that we consider all that much. When we talk about the summer, we often talk about the fresh, high heat, super citrusy, bright fragrances. But what about for the evening time? What if you want something that's still kind of fresh, but has a little bit more depth, a little bit more richness, maybe a touch of sweetness in there, something that shines when there's that warm summer breeze after the sun has gone down? Zafferano is definitely one to consider for that. As per the name, it is a saffron-based fragrance, but you do have a little bit of a freshness, maybe a bit of a fruity quality in there. I can't remember if it's apple or just citruses. It's a little bit spicy and warm and kind of sweet, definitely woody and dry as it dries on the skin, has a bit of a bitterness that counteracts the sweetness, but it's primarily that saffron that's kind of this leathery, warm spice. It's just so well done here. It smells like purple and red and magenta. I've always said that that's just the colors that come to mind when I smell this. It almost smells overtly floral, but it's not super floral forward. It's somehow very, very masculine while eliciting these romantic smelling colors and things like that. I love the way this wears on the skin. Perfect for a summer evening when you want to be a little bit more dressed up. Zafferano. We've got a classic here from the 1980s, maybe 1983 or something. I can't quite remember the year. This is from Caron, and the name of this fragrance is here on screen, but it ultimately translates to the Third Man, a classic gentleman's citrus aromatic. If you like stuff that's a little bit more old school leaning, a little soapy, clean, citrusy, lots of oak moss in the base, this dry, maybe borderline animalic mossiness as it dries down. It just smells very manly. There's a cleanliness here, but there's a little bit of an edge to it. Definitely a serious type of fresh fragrance, but it can be worn really any time of the day for pretty much any situation if it's something that you love. Let me know if you've tried this one. Not a whole lot of talk on it these days. I understand why. It's been out for many decades, but it's still available. There's a reason why you can still find it. The Third Man from Caron. This one is a classic. It's been on my channel for a while. It came out in the 1990s, but you would not think it when you smelled it. Totally timeless, completely timeless. I was shocked when I found out the year that this came out. This is Philosykos from Diptyque. Fig to the max. It pays homage to the entire fig tree. The woodiness of the branches, the greenness of the leaves, the fruitiness of the fruit itself. It's a little sweet and juicy, but maybe not the most sweet. Again, the green kind of helps to offset it a bit, and there's a nice little coconut vibe in here that makes it feel just beachy enough. Not sunscreeny, not too under the sun solar vibes, which has been a big thing in the past couple years. It's just enough to add a touch of creaminess, a touch of this slightly tropical feel that feels like it belongs on the beach. It's a very uplifting, fresh, fruity, green, woody fragrance. Lovely stuff. Let me know if you dig this one. Also comes in an EDP that might be a little bit more expensive if you don't mind spending a little bit more, but maybe get a sample of this one. This is the EDT. I'll link it down below. From Micallef, kind of an unsung hero, does not get talked about very much, and it's maybe not the most interesting fragrance, but it's a well done scent and relatively special for an aquatic. This is Osaïto. Osaïto, yes, aquatic fragrance with some myrtle in here. There's something kind of like almost sweet, rich floral about it, but it's still very salty, fresh, clean, citrusy, woody, super easy to wear. It's honestly, for me, maybe a slightly more upscale aquatic. It's one that you can dress up a little bit more. It doesn't just have to be super casual. It's not the strongest fragrance in terms of its presence, but it does stick around on the skin a good little while, at least for me, and that's great for an aquatic. Anyway, that's Osaïto. Let me know if you enjoyed this one from Micallef. We've got another fragrance that I think will shine for the evening. You can really pull this off any time of the year. Not my top pick for the highest heat on the hottest days of the summer. During the summertime, I would much rather reserve this for the more moderate temperatures, and those will usually be at night. This is from Nishane. It is Papilefiko. This is a special fragrance. It's one of my favorites from the house, period. It's one of my most worn. And for those who care, it's a pretty high compliment getter for me. I've seen the same from other people who've said that. And to me, it does smell a little bit like the uncle of Desir Toxic from Micallef, who we just talked about. It's not a cousin, it's an uncle. It's a little bit more mature, more grown up, more confident, more experienced, less playful. To me, this is kind of like an ambery resinous fougere. There is this like tree resin feel. I don't know if it's fir, I can't remember. It's some kind of tree balsam or some kind of benzoin or something behind this almost fougere vibe. There is a lavender cleanliness. There's some fresh spicy cardamom, which really sings off the skin and makes this one of the biggest attracting components of the scent. Cardamom just smells really, really nice in the air when well done. Dominique Ropillon, I believe, is the one who perfumed this. It just, the oak moss base, just the way it wears on the skin, it is so gentlemanly, it's so refined, it's so sophisticated. It's something, again, to wear dressed up in the evening time. That is Papilefiko from Nishane. This one is tried and true. A lot of you guys already love this. If you haven't tried this one, I do recommend getting a decan of it because it's one of the best from the house. It's been around for quite a number of years, coming on 20 years pretty soon, from the house of Xerjoff. It's Nio. And I do have to be honest, I didn't always love Nio. Nio was not my favorite fragrance from the house. When I first tried it, it was a little bit too green and too floral. I think the neroli or something in here was just a little too much for me, and I didn't enjoy the experience. But having got this bottle years later, I love the greenness of it because it's definitive. It gives this fragrance a personality. Very green, kind of like green grass or green leaves. Very refreshing, like cool morning air through the leaves. Some soft florals in the heart. It lasts a good while on my skin. Even though it sits close after the first few hours, it lingers for a while, and it just really smells like nothing else out there. It's a special scent profile that will stand out, but it's something that's very accessible and very easy to like in the air. High quality stuff. That's Nio from Xerjoff. This was hyped for a while when it came out. I don't see a whole lot of talk on it these days for whatever reason. This is from Amouroud, and this is Wet Stone. Probably one of the most popular fragrances that they've put out. A lot of people dig it. because it's easy to wear, but it's different. Wet Stone is a great name. It does have this minerally, like stone in a brook type of feel. There's this like mineral rock feel, almost a bit of a saltiness. It's kind of fresh, dry, and almost like a woody stone-like way. But there's something uplifting about it. There's something, again, fresh and clean about it. It's something that just doesn't smell like a whole lot of other things out there while still being accessible. Not an easy balance to strike for a fresh fragrance. Wet Stone does it super well, and I'm glad it's still available. Let me know if you dig this one. Let me know if you have it in your collection and if you enjoy Wet Stone. I think it's a great niche fragrance that does not smell mainstream, but is very accessible. I love this one. I did not expect to love it as much as I do. I got it just a couple months ago, and it's becoming a staple for me this summer. This is from Goldfield and Banks, and it's Bohemian Lime. It does smell a little bit mainstream. There is a borderline basic feel to it. Not in terms of the quality, but just in terms of the personality. It doesn't set itself all that much apart from maybe some male marketed designer fragrances you can buy out there, but there's something special about it on the skin. It does have a finger lime accord or note in it that's more of a sweeter, juicier lime than your standard sour lime. There's this not so natural feel running through it like an ambroxan or something kind of like fresh musky that carries the scent. It kind of mutes a little bit of the citrus bite. At least to me, it just makes it a little bit more like a standard aroma chemical vibe in there, but it's really smooth, and whatever the heck they're using in here as it dries down with the woods and things, it hangs on the skin for a while, maybe 10, 12 hours on my skin. Very surprising for a fresh profile like this. So it's a great one. I just love the way it makes me feel when I wear it, even though it's simple. It's not basic. That is Bohemian Lime from Goldfield and Banks. And our final fragrance is also more of an evening geared fragrance, especially for the summertime. It does have a warmer, sweeter feel, a richer feel to it. This is from the house of Zaharoff. It's one that honestly I've unfortunately overlooked a bit. I've definitely underappreciated this. I think it is underappreciated across YouTube in general, and I think it needs some more love. And I'm going to start with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Zaharoff Signature Royale, the original Signature Royale, which has spawned some flankers. It's lovely, man. It takes the original Signature Pour Homme DNA, which is a very unique, very definitive take on the aromatic fougere, the barbershop leaning fragrance, and it simplifies it and gives it a different focus. There's apple in here. There's a magnolia in here. So there's almost this like waxy, rich fruitiness, almost cottony in its woodiness. The way it just kind of sits on the skin, it has this thicker texture to it that's still kind of fresh, still has a little bit of a brightness to it, but maybe a little bit more bottom heavy, some rich maybe vanillas or tonka beans or sandalwood, something that keeps it sweet and warm on the skin, and just something that in the air smells wonderful, especially when there's some heat to kind of bring it to life. A great summer evening fragrance, one that you can find again in that $150 price point, but Zaharoff does offer samples as far as I understand, so you can easily sample this one at their website, which will be linked in the description along with all these fragrances. So that's all I really have to say today, guys. I'd love to know your thoughts on this matter. I know I said a lot of things. Maybe I pushed some buttons, maybe some feathers were ruffled, but I made this video because I want to keep this discussion going. I think it's important that we keep thinking and speaking critically about our decisions, about what's happening before us. Otherwise, we go with the flow. We just become like rocks in the stream. We want to actually have awareness of where we're at and what we're doing. At least that's the way I see it with the one life that we have to live. We're not average, and that is a decision we make daily. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.